remember to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. I'm back again. You know I write with a scalpel because my penmanship is surgical. In my video on Edgerunners and hype, I talk about the discourse around the anime more than the story itself. When I did talk about the story, I didn't go into much detail because it was an off-the-cuff video. This time, I want to take my time to gather all of the positives and negatives about the story to paint a clearer picture of my thoughts. The first thing I want to address is something that I briefly mentioned in the first video. This anime is based on the game Cyberpunk 2077. That game had a rocky release, but this anime was able to single-handedly pull it from the grave and make it one of the most played games. Because of this anime, this game, that was called a dud, passed the all-time Steam peak concurrent players for The Witcher 3. That doesn't make the story good, but it's definitely an impressive feat and could be a major reason why people are so receptive to this story. 2077 shattered the fans' hope of something they were hyped for, so they are willing to settle for something competent from the franchise, that being the anime. That's how I see it. Also, after researching the wiki, I learned that basically all of the weapons and enhancements used in the anime are actually in the game, which is an additional reason fans would be very accepting of the story. People have actually tried to make builds based on the characters, which is cool. It honors and references the source material and tells a decent story. All of these are external factors that I believe contribute to the immense wave of positivity aimed at the story. I don't play games, so I didn't play 2077, which is why I couldn't feel this appreciation, but I definitely understand it in retrospect. Another thing I liked is the main romance between David and Lucy. First, what made her so appealing? I'd say it's because she fell under the manic pixie dream girl archetype. This is defined as a type of female character depicted as vivacious and appealingly quirky, whose main purpose within the narrative is to inspire a greater appreciation for life in a male protagonist. That's basically what she did. She introduced David to being an edgerunner, which became his life, and she taught him that he needed a dream of his own. She's also reliable, shown when she saved him from the ambulance. They had a unique bond because she showed only him her moon simulation and told him her dream. They had playful banter, and she even almost held his hand in episode 2. These are ideal traits in a partner, making her an ideal waifu. Their chemistry was off the charts in episode 2. The song they played during the moon simulation was immaculate and really elevated the scene. It never felt like they were just forcing two characters together at the start. Although, this chemistry died down the longer the story went on, especially after the time skip. Another point of interest is the characters. Overall, the Edgerunners group had great chemistry together and felt like a solid family. I don't think any individual was a standout character, but as a group they were definitely solid. I had a strong enough connection to them to get upset at each of their deaths. Another minor thing I liked was the opening. I usually hate when anime borrows songs rather than making their own, but this fit perfectly and was hype. Now, the negatives. My biggest problem with the story is the ending. There are multiple layers to this. First, the feeling that everything was pointless. I wouldn't have a problem if he died and defeated Adam Smasher. I understand that the anime takes place before 2077 and Adam is alive in the game, but that doesn't change the lack of satisfaction of the story. David loses the fight and dies. You could say that he successfully saved Lucy, but that's it? All of these characters died and that's all they accomplished? I want to take a look at two different anime with deaths that feel more satisfying. Cowboy Bebop and Gurren Lagann. Spoilers for both. In Bebop, Spike Spiegel dies at the end, but what did he accomplish? He avenged his girlfriend's death by taking down the entire organization responsible for killing her, mostly by himself. Defeated his arch-nemesis in a 1v1, and he finally found out if he was really alive, something that was set up before. The only way you can say that Spike failed is that he died, but that could be countered by the fact that, by dying and going out in a blaze of glory rather than wandering into the next day, he showed that he was truly alive. In Gurren Lagann, Kamina dies in battle as well. How is his death executed? He comes back from deadly injuries to fuse with Simone's mecha. They take down several enemies, and they use one last attack to kill their current enemy, winning the battle. Only then does Kamina die. Once again, the only way you can say that he failed is that he died. Does David win against Adam? Does he take down Arasaka? Does he at least get revenge on Faraday and Kate, the people responsible for capturing Lucy? Does he protect all of his friends? No, 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 and no. The only thing he managed to do was stall to get Lucy and Falco to safety. So in his final moments, he didn't go out in a blaze of glory. In fact, if I zoom out, it leads me to asking what was the point of anything he did. What was the point of the Edgerunners' deaths? What did they even accomplish? If David at least survived or got revenge against the main antagonists, I could say that's what everyone died for. But as it stands, they all just died for David to die too, and for Lucy and Falco to run away and go into hiding. it's hard to say that his life wasn't a failure. The second layer is the wasted Chekhov's gun. As David was falling into psychosis, they set up the fact that only Lucy would be able to bring him back. When they meet during the final battle, that's what happens. He goes back to normal, but then he loses and dies anyway. So what was the point of bringing him out of cyber psychosis? It's not like he's stronger when he's normal. The Chekhov's gun implied that David would win and be able to live out the rest of his life with Lucy if he snapped back to normal, but he regains consciousness just to lose. The third layer is that all this shows that David didn't learn from Maine. Maine used too many enhancements and went psycho because of it and died. Then David does the exact same thing, despite people trying to warn him, just like he tried to warn Maine. You could argue that the point was to tell a tragic story, but that's very unsatisfying and leaves a bitter taste in my mouth, especially when it seems that David's rationality decreased over the time skip. The fourth layer has to do with setups and payoffs, a cornerstone of my story theory. When a story sets something up, it needs to pay it off in a satisfying way. So when Atom Smasher shows up, the expectation that arises is that David and Adam will fight. I also had the expectation that this was the final boss that he would beat to have his happy ending. This is an expectation most viewers have because stories are mostly about characters overcoming their conflicts in life. Protagonists are always dealing with forces of conflict that are initially stronger than them, and they have to find a way to overcome it. That's a big part of what makes stories interesting. How does this character emerge victorious from his problem? Therefore, having your characters fail takes away the payoff that the audience is waiting for, which is extremely unsatisfying. You may subvert expectations as an author by making the protagonist lose at the end, but at the cost of a payoff that provides satisfying relief for your audience. Not a great plan. There are times where making the protagonist lose works, but those are in rare conditions, ones that Edgerunners does not meet. The fifth layer is that I thought the story was just okay, but a really good ending could have elevated the story. Instead, this bad ending decreased my appreciation for the story. If a story is immaculate throughout its run, it has enough cushion for a terrible ending to not tank its quality, but Edgerunners didn't have that cushion. So David's death made the entire story and life of the character feel pointless. It wasted a Chekhov's gun, it damaged his character, it failed at paying off setups and expectations, and it damaged the overall quality of the story because it didn't have enough cushioning from the beginning and middle. Those are the important thoughts and analyses I had on Edgerunners. The positives are that it revived a catastrophic game, honored the game in the story, had great chemistry between characters, and had good music. The negatives mostly lie within the disaster that is David's death. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.